Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video, and this is actually my first reaction since I've been able to start posting on YouTube again. Obviously, the videos I done yesterday and the videos that I posted yesterday were, one was posted on my Patreon a few days before that, and the other was actually posted a week ago on my new channel where I posted updates on what was happening pretty much. Links are all there. Like I said, there's a lot of Patreon reactions I did, if you want to catch up on those. But we're going to get into this. The video is what if world war started tomorrow. Yeah, it seems like quite an interesting video. There's sort of videos that I would react to. Hopefully this doesn't happen. But with everything going on with Russia and all that kind of stuff, seems like it's I guess maybe a possibility. I don't know if it'd be a nuclear war, but again, with Russia involved with their nuclear arms, etc., you never know. But yeah, we're going to check this out. When was this actually made? Okay, so it was made a few days ago, so it was probably made with the idea of what's happening in the world right now. But hopefully you're all doing good. I appreciate the response to my kind of return, but we're going to get back into the reactions. Hopefully you're going to enjoy, and let's just jump into
The Third World War could have started back in 1958. A U.S. Air Force bomber accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb into a family's backyard in South Carolina. That day resulted in the deaths of many baby chicks. Yeah, miraculously, the bomb didn't go off. It just crushed a few domestic birds with its weight. In this video, you'll find out that a devastating threat can result not only from the divisions between...
How lucky is that? What are the chances of it not exploding? That would be like a low, probably below 0.1% kind of thing. Because I swear, like, the fact that it didn't explode, that shouldn't happen for the bombs. Like, what? Jesus.
Powerful countries, but from the carelessness of one of the presidents, the rising moon, or even an ordinary bear. We haven't even noticed how close we've been to the Third World War over 10 times already. It's time you learned, what does war have to do with football? How did a washing machine save the planet? How many times could the world actually end? And most importantly, why could the Third World War have started?
Riddle, let's go, man.
The security system that could protect us from a large-scale military conflict is far from perfect, because the trigger that activates a mechanism capable of blowing entire cities off the map can be found in such a seemingly inconspicuous handbag. That's a briefcase with a well-known red button, one of the most highly classified devices in the world, which is, meanwhile, scarcely ever out of our sight. The nuclear briefcase follows the president on all his trips, along with identical briefcases to make it hard to determine which of them is the Pandora's death box. There are allegedly no such briefcases in France, China, Great Britain, Pakistan, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Or maybe this information just isn't publicized. While secret briefcases in the United States and Russia are known...
Such an awkward encounter, man. That's so weird. Getting these two in a room must be the weirdest situation, because they both hate each other, all this kind of stuff. And it would just be so awkward seeing these two leaders together.
The latter's launch button is not red, but white. In addition, for greater safety, it's the same size as the other buttons inside the briefcase. The officer carrying this dangerous briefcase is a military liaison officer, but he's always dressed as a Navy officer. This is intended to stand out in a crowd. Then why don't they just dress the officer in a zebra outfit and give him a sign that says, "I've got the briefcase for launching nuclear missiles"? I'm sure you'll all agree it's strange. The U.S. president's suitcase is known as the nuclear football, or just the football. But that doesn't mean you can use it to throw a touchdown. Contrary to popular belief, the American football doesn't have a red button either. However, the briefcase contains a satellite radio transmitter and the so-called gold codes. They're intended to be used for launching nuclear missiles. It's like using a picture with the unlock code as the lock screen wallpaper, you might say. But there was a president who kept the code in a safer place. Jimmy Carter carried it in his jacket pocket. which he once sent to the dry cleaners along with a valuable note. Perhaps once, an ordinary washing machine saved our lives. It's scary to realize that a nuclear briefcase can be entrusted to someone far from being responsible. Does it mean the decision to push the button can't even be entrusted to a president? The United Nations...
Why is a president taking his clothes to a dry cleaner? That's my biggest question.
The Disarmament Commission developed the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Countries had to sign an agreement that they would never be the first to use those weapons. What could possibly go wrong? If no one starts a war, it won't happen. Guess which country abided by the treaty? Only China. Its nuclear warheads are kept separate from the missiles, while the US and Russia reserve the right to launch a nuclear strike even in response to the use of conventional weapons in military actions. Once a nuclear attack on the country is confirmed, the president will have only 10 minutes to decide whether or not to launch missiles. Personally, I tend to take like 2 hours just deciding what movie to watch in the evening. What if the president turns out to be unprepared for a conscious decision? President Richard Nixon, for example, being on the verge of retirement, suffered from clinical depression. He used to get rip-roaring drunk and was acting strange. Despite all that, Nixon still had the sole authority to launch a nuclear strike.
That's crazy, man. How are you going to give... firstly, the one person, obviously, is the president, so they have the responsibility and they have the all-deciding decision to decide whatever they want to do. But if someone's, I guess, unstable in this sort of way and they're getting drunk all the time and all this kind of stuff, that just seems crazy that you'd still give them the responsibility for something so, like, something that could end so damn badly.
That would trigger the Third World War. How can one person be given that power? Fortunately, there was no nuclear attack under Nixon, but there was a case where the worst outcome almost happened. During the Cold War, the US had a significant nuclear advantage over the Soviet Union. Washington deployed nuclear missiles in Italy and Turkey. Their range covered the European part of the USSR. Then, in 1962, Cuba secretly allowed the Soviet Union to set up its military bases, including a nuclear warhead depot on its territory. That's only 10 minutes of rocket flight to Washington. The leader of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev, as he put it, wanted to put a hedgehog down the Americans' pants by bringing nuclear weapons to their borders. In this way, he planned to get leverage over Kennedy and achieve the removal of U.S. missiles from Turkey. A Lockheed U-2, an American spy plane, quickly discovered a secret nuclear base. Then the military offered Kennedy to start bombing Cuba. But President Kennedy decided to start with a naval blockade of Cuba. In response, the Soviet military shot down an American surveillance aircraft, a Lockheed U-2. And that could trigger the Third World War, because then a Soviet submarine was bombarded by U.S. depth charges. However, the Americans didn't know there was a torpedo with a nuclear warhead on the sub. Given that there was no communication with Moscow on the submarine, its commander decided that the war had already started and almost fired a nuclear torpedo. However, another senior officer, Vasily Arkhipov,
canceled. It's crazy how these small little details could just turn so many different ways, and one little mistake could have led to so many, or such a worse scenario, and like obviously people being killed, then war breaking out properly, and it would be a nuclear war at that point. And I mean, jeez, one small mistake as well. It's wild that, again, people get these sorts of responsibilities. Obviously, they're people that are selected and trained for it, but still, it's crazy.
The launch and saved the world from nuclear war. Our planet has been on the brink of the Third World War way more than once. But unlike the Cuban Missile Crisis, some of the motives were utterly absurd. How many times do you think a trembling finger hovered over the nuclear launch button, ready to press it? Not 10, and not even 15, but 22 times. For example, in 1962, an unidentified intruder attempted to climb over the perimeter fence of an American military base. someone pressed the wrong button. And instead of a standard security warning, the pilots heard a siren signifying a takeoff on alert with nuclear weapons on board. They were fully convinced the Third World War had started. As it turned out, the intruder was a bear who was just curious to see what was going on behind the base's fence. It might at first glance...
Wait, what? This little bear, man. Wait.
The Third World War had started. As it turned out, the intruder was a bear who was just curious to see what was going on behind the base's fence.
It
might at first glance appear to be sent by the Russians, but the animal was the most ordinary predator from the nearest forest. In 1960, the U.S. Nuclear Command Center, NORAD, received warning signals from radar. It detected something big and glowing. Everything pointed to a nuclear attack by the Soviet Union, with the probability of 99.9%. The United States was ready to attack the Soviet Union back. But it was soon discovered that the unknown weapon was the bright rising moon that the radar mistook for a threat. In this case, technical problems were to blame, but the next accident was caused by pure stupidity. In 1995, Boris Yeltsin, then president of Russia, found out that radar had detected a missile launch off the coast of Norway. It looked like an operational ballistic missile was launched from a nuclear submarine. The rocket went straight up, but it wasn't clear where it was headed. Russian strategic rocket forces were put on high alert, and Yeltsin draped over a nuclear briefcase, preparing to retaliate. But it turned out to be the Norwegian-American Black Brant 12 research rocket with scientific equipment to study the aurora borealis. And the scientists had notified Russia of their intention to launch a scientific experiment aboard a rocket 1 month in advance. So, when can we expect the Third World War? Maybe today. Who knows? These days, there are several ongoing military conflicts on the planet that could spin out of control at any moment. A global military conflict could start with fighting for the island of Taiwan claimed by China, Kashmir, which is a contested region between India and China, the Strait of Hormuz, which is located within the territorial waters of Iran and the United Arab Emirates, as well as a mutual nuclear missile bombardment between North Korea and the United States. Where do you think is the safest and most peaceful place on Earth? Mention it.
New Zealand. I'll say New Zealand.
In the comments, so I know which country I should buy a ticket to.
Yeah, I'd probably say New Zealand. I don't know though. Vasily Akirpov is a criminally underrated hero. He defied orders and quite literally saved the fucking world. Yeah, I feel like I've heard about him in previous videos, and from what I remember, he was an absolute gangster, and how he decided not to shoot the missile. Don't know why I said gangster, but an absolute just legend pretty much. Thank God for him for doing that, because I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. If World War III should break out, chances are that the Northern Hemisphere will be uninhabitable. With that being said, I'd say that the South Pole looks really good. Petition to have Riddle's voice as a Google Assistant. Use his voice for Siri instead. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one. I mean, it's a bit of a darker one, so maybe you didn't. But let me know your thoughts on this. If you want more reactions like this, let me know in the comments. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.